Welcome to the Train Truths podcast with your host, Caleb. That's me. Today, we're going to talk about carbohydrates, insulin resistance, and fat loss. So, right now, there's a giant push online by influencers to say basically, like, if you have any insulin, you're not going to lose any fat because the presence of insulin equals no fat loss. And what they're essentially pushing is like a carnivore or keto type diet, low carbohydrate diet in order to lose fat. And I'm going to disprove that today. I'm going to tell you why it's nonsense and tell you like a more realistic approach of like what you can do to lose fat. So in general, the approach is false. Like the insulinogenic model of obesity has not been proven. Okay. There's no evidence to support that model by comparison to the overwhelming amount of evidence that supports a calories in, calories out based model of obesity. Okay. So, what we've known for decades and decades and decades is that if you eat less calories than what it takes to maintain your body, you're going to lose weight. Okay. And right now, there's a big push by, I think it's like mostly the carnivore group people and the keto group people where they're saying like if you're eating carbs when you're trying to lose weight, you're not going to lose weight, and nothing could be further from the truth. And they're using insulin resistance and just insulin in general as kind of like the boogeyman to prove that you're not going to lose weight doing this. Well, the interesting thing is that there are randomized human control trials on this, and they did one in 2022 by the Cochrane Heart Group, and what they found is they took a low carbohydrate group and a balanced carbohydrate group where calories were equated, and both groups lost the same amount of weight over the duration of the time. And so it doesn't make a difference whether or not you're eating a high carb or a low carb dietary approach. If you want to lose weight, what really matters is, are you eating the proper amount of calories in order for you to lose weight? Okay. And I know that this current topic is just being pushed like crazy on social media. I've been getting asked about it nonstop in my TikTok lives, and it's just not true. There's no evidence to support it. And the other thing to note is that when they're talking about insulin resistance and you must eat a low carb diet in order to correct it, that's also not true, because the number one like thing that you can do to move the needle to improve insulin resistance is just to eat in a caloric deficit and improve your body composition along with it. As body composition improves and as you eat in a caloric deficit, insulin resistance improves too. Like they go hand in hand. And so insulin is not the enemy. The fitness industry likes to make a boogeyman out of anything that it possibly can, and it tends to go in cycles. And so seemingly we're back in like this Atkins cycle where it's like you have to eat low carb if you want to lose weight. And that's just not true. There's no evidence to support that. The evidence suggests that if you eat in a calorie deficit and you do it consistently, you will lose weight. Now, that being said, when it comes to dietary approaches, some dietary approaches work better for some people than others. Okay. And so when I'm talking to like clients and just educating people, what I tell people is what I want you to focus on in general is eating a whole foods based diet. Like I want you to focus on eating single ingredient foods that come as they are, right? A carrot is a carrot. A chicken is chicken. Beef is beef. Like the less ingredients, the better. I want you to focus on that. If the dietary approach follows those rules, for the purpose of improving your body composition, pick the one that you can adhere to. Okay. You don't have to like, there is no optimal. The optimal is adherence. The king of getting you results is adherence. And so if you like low carb, you like keto because it's satiating, it makes it easier to hit your protein goal because you're having protein consistently, go for it. If you like a more balanced carbohydrate diet and you can adhere to that, go for it. Like it doesn't matter whether you're paleo, vegan, vegetarian, keto, carnivore, whatever, in this transition from getting you from a poor body composition to a better body composition, pick the one that you can adhere to. Okay. Now, for long-term health, that's going to be that's a different topic. That's a different, question and answer, right? Like it depends, I would say, for long-term health on genetics. Like there is no ideal diet for everybody. Like, I think what we've learned from like the carnivore crew is that some people do extremely well on eating just carnivore style foods over the long term per not only their symptoms, but also their blood work. And then some people, their blood work is horrendous when they're doing it. And so what that tells you, and this is kind of like a no dust situation if you just think about it practically, is like your individual genetics kind of determine what you tolerate well and what you don't tolerate well. Like there is no perfect human diet. The closest we can get to that is eating whole foods in general seems to be the healthiest from a macro and micronutrient standpoint and calorie control standpoint. But that doesn't mean that, having, 20% of your diet where you're eating, some processed foods or some foods that are not necessarily considered healthy is completely off the table, right? Because poison is dose dependent. So, in general, just to kind of like simplify it for you, pick the dietary approach that you can adhere to because adherence is king when you're trying to improve your body composition. Make sure that it's a dietary approach where at least 80% of your food is coming from whole foods, single ingredients. 20% can come from kind of like junkier foods, if you will, processed foods. And in general, I think that that's a sustainable path to improve body composition because the biggest thing that we're aiming for to improve longevity, health, and how you feel is just to improve your body composition first. Okay. Like let's get leaner, let's put on some muscle mass. And the path to doing that is eating a responsible deficit, like 300 to 500 calories below total daily energy expenditure, eating enough protein. If you have like less than 30 pounds to lose, I would say eat somewhere in the vicinity of like 1 gram per pound of body weight in protein. If you have more than 30 pounds to lose, kind of the rule of thumb is eat your target body weight in protein, and that should be sufficient. And then, like I said, eat a 300 to 500 calorie a day deficit, and you're going to do great from that. Okay. You don't need to worry about all of this nonsense that people talk about where they're like trying to make it hyper complicated. It's not hyper complicated. Eat in a responsible deficit, train with weights, do some cardio. If you're doing those things and you're following the principles that are necessary to get results, you're going to get results. Like if you're eating a calorie deficit consistently, that's responsible. You can expect long-term weight loss, and then you can make some adjustments when you plateau. If you're training with weights and you're following the hypertrophy principles, you're going to retain muscle in a deficit. You might have the bonus of building a little bit of muscle. I wouldn't count on it, but plan on retaining muscle, and that's going to be great for your metabolic health, and just muscle retention as you're losing weight. And then if you do cardio, that's great for your cardiovascular system, as well as a nice calorie burning tool that you can do on the way down that you can play with. You can increase cardio, for example, to increase calorie burn so you don't immediately have to take food away. So it's like increase activity or decrease calories, right? So you can increase cardio pretty easily by like 10 minutes a day in order to break plateaus. So it's literally that simple. In general, for health, I would highly suggest you focus on a whole foods based diet. The majority of your food should come from whole foods, 80%. 20%, you can have some wiggle room. So long as you're hitting your calories, that's okay. That's it. Like the insulinogenic model of obesity has not been proven, despite what a lot of these people are saying. What has been proven is calories in, calories out. And, ultimately, you should be picking a dietary approach that is centered around your current circumstance. So it's like, what can you adhere to? Do you want to cure insulin resistance faster? Maybe a low carb approach might do it faster, but ultimately you'll get there through being in a calorie deficit and improving body composition. If you're having like chronic inflammatory conditions, that might be a case where like a low carb approach might be helpful. We've seen like some pretty good symptom resolution for people who eat lower carbs who have like PCOS, endometriosis, and some of these things that you kind of treat like a chronic inflammatory condition. But in general, like if your total goal is to improve body composition, pick the dietary approach that you can adhere to, eat in a responsible deficit, hit your protein target, train with weights, do some cardio. If you do that, you're going to find success. And then once you've reached the body composition that you're after, then you can start looking into like what dietary approach do I feel the best on that I can adhere to long term. And hopefully it's the one that you got lean on in the first place, because I see a lot of times where people are doing like carnivore or paleo or keto or something like that, and they get improved body composition. But then when they try to like switch gears and go to more of like a balanced or like an omnivore based diet, they rebound really hard and they put a bunch of weight back on because they haven't habituated the lifestyle choices and the amounts and the boundaries regarding the omnivore based diet that they should have, because they relied on, for lack of a better word, like restriction or elimination. And so you can use whatever, any of those tools you want to improve your body composition. Probably the best thing to do is to figure out what you're willing to adhere to long term and do that. And then once you reach your proper body composition, have your labs drawn and see if everything is kosher. If you're doing something more extreme like a carnivore or keto or something like that, like it's probably wise to have your labs pulled because it doesn't work with everybody's seemingly genetics. In order to make sure that you're like in a healthy position. So that's what I would recommend. That's what I have to say about insulin, carbohydrates, low carb diets, and losing fluff. Hopefully that kind of like rights the ship. The summary is that it doesn't matter. It all comes down to calorie intake. And if you want to improve your body composition, I highly suggest that you eat in a responsible deficit, train with weights, hit your protein target, and do a bit of cardio. That's kind of like the trifecta. Sleep 8 to 9 hours a night would be really helpful as well. If you're doing those things consistently, you're going to lose weight. Pick a dietary approach that works for you that's based around whole foods. Once you get into like the body composition that you're after, you can figure out like what works best for you for longevity and health. And that's the path. Okay. That's the process. It doesn't have to be complicated. That's the system. If you need help help with this. That's why I have coaching. So you can go to my website, www.trainingtruths.com. There's coaching on there, or you can find my school group where I have a coaching group. It's 29 bucks a month. You're going to get plans, you're going to get courses, you're going to get unlimited question and answer, monthly coaching check-ins. Everything that you really need to be successful is on that group for 29 bucks a month. That's like the really cheap way to get some guidance. Otherwise, thank you for listening, and we will see you guys next time.